Today's episode of the E&G podcast is sponsored by our good friends at Clothing by Owl. All you Bachelor fans will recognize this name as they are the company behind the hugely popular Wine, Bachelor, and Yoga Pants tank top. What you may not know is that they give back a percentage of every item sold to Animal Rescue, and that notable Bachelor alums like JoJo Fletcher, Caitlin Bristow, Lauren Bushnell, Ben Higgins, and Nick Vale are all huge supporters. We're happy to offer our listeners 20% off when you visit clothingbyowl.com. Simply add the discount code ENG, that's EANDG, to save on all your Bachelor gear. And be sure to follow them on social media at Clothing by Owl.
Jeff and I are doggy dads, which is why we're so excited to be partnering with our newest sponsor, Puppies Make Me Happy. They have a super simple mission, to make the happiest clothes on earth, which they do. And we know our listeners will love this brand just as much as we do. Plus, we're excited to help spread a little happiness ourselves by offering listeners 20% off all merchandise by using discount code ENG. That's EANDG at checkout. Make sure to follow them on Instagram at Puppies Make Me Happy.
Welcome back to the E&G podcast, another special interview edition with Izzy. Before we get into that, Ian's got some big news for the podcast.
What's up, Jeff? What's up, everybody? So we do got some big news. So we've partnered up on Instagram and on social media with a new partner, and it's Bachelor_Nation. These guys are great. They have 133,000 followers. And what's cool about this partnership is that going forward, we're going to be able to run promotions and contests through that channel. And so please do check them out. They're available on both Instagram and Twitter. Again, that's Bachelor_Nation. They're going to be our social partner. Jeff and I, we're not the social media wizards. You can still certainly follow us at the E&G podcast. But we're really going to rely heavily on them so that we can focus on giving you guys great content on the podcast and then also focusing on our YouTube channel. So really excited to kick off that partnership and also excited to roll out this new interview that we have with Izzy. So Izzy Goodkind joined us this past week. Jeff, what were your takeaways from that conversation?
Yeah, so we got Izzy on Team Vizzy. She's Vinny and Izzy on Paradise, if you guys have not been watching, which obviously you have because you listen to our show. So she was great. She was, first off, we had some technical difficulties. Let's get that out of the way. We've never had technical difficulties to this point. I don't know if it was a Skype update situation, but basically the beginning of the interview is cut off. But all you guys really missed is, us saying hello to Izzy, and we asked her how she got on The Bachelor initially, and she just basically told us she applied for the show, she filled out some stuff, she heard back months later, she was standing in line in New York City, there was thousands of girls, she said everyone was dressed in all these nice gowns, and they had their makeup done, and she just looked very, I guess she said plain and normal for her. And then a producer came and grabbed her out of line, out of thousands of girls, brought her in. They knew who she was, apparently, from her initial paperwork and submission. And then from there, it just kept going. She said after that, it was weeks, or maybe she said months of just, sending them stuff and videos and pictures of her and, showing her personality, basically. So that's how she got on the show. And, the interview, she's very... how you say it, politically correct across the board. She loves everybody. You guys will hear in the interview, she loves absolutely everybody. She has not a bad thing to say, not even a sort of bad thing to say about anyone. She just seems very positive and happy, I guess you could say.
Which is great. I mean, that speaks to her and why people probably love her on the show. But at the same time, we were trying to get some stuff out of her. And with that said, we still had a great conversation. So we did talk about everybody and all your favorites on Bachelor in Paradise this season. And as Jeff mentioned, the initial part that cut off was a little bit to do about Ben as well. A lot of people will remember Izzy from night one. She did go home on Ben's season night one. And she was remembered mainly for wearing her romper, where everybody else was decked out in their ball gowns. Izzy showed up in the romper. That made her stand apart from the crew. And she caught some slack for that after the fact. And that's actually where you hear us picking up this conversation. So you'll hear her talk about the romper, and we're going to get into Bachelor in Paradise from there. We really hope you enjoy this interview with Izzy Goodkind.
It's kind of like my thing, definitely like a good onesie.
Okay.
So I ended up wearing that, and I was in the limo with Leah, Tiara, and JoJo. And first of all, like JoJo is absolutely stunning. Like she looked unbelievable that first night, and I show up in this onesie, and they all looked at me and they were like, "Are you like a contestant, or like do you work here?" Like they didn't know I was like on the show. And so I immediately was so nervous. Like I was like, what am I doing? But like I had to rock it, and I did it. And I mean, getting out of that limo, I was so hot. Like it was so hot. And I had worn like leggings and a tank top underneath it. So I was like, it was disgustingly hot there. So I was so nervous to meet Ben, but he loved it. They didn't really show my discussion with him when I got out of the limo, but he did say, he was like, wow, this is the best move of the night. You look so comfortable. And then I walk into the room and all the girls were just like, oh my God, I cannot believe you would do that. Like, we're actually very jealous. You look so comfortable. And to be honest, I was so comfortable. Like, most girls probably wouldn't be comfortable wearing that next to 30 other girls wearing gowns, you know?
Exactly.
So that's what I did, and I was myself, and going home that first night was horrendous, but, you know, I don't really dwell on it because look where I am now.
Absolutely. And so, and just to recap, so you applied to the show because, and you were watching Chris's season, right? The farmer that we all remember.
Yep.
How familiar were you with Ben going into it? Like, were you hoping it was Ben? Were you excited to meet him? Like, what was the anticipation like?
Yeah, I was so excited to meet him. I knew it was Ben. Well, they had announced it right before we left. I was hoping it would be him or Benzie at the time from Caitlin's season. So either one of them would have been fine. And I was so excited to meet him. I was nervous, but he seemed like such a genuine guy that he didn't intimidate me. I don't usually get very intimidated often, but he didn't intimidate me at all. And he was just so sweet and so like just so nice to everybody, and made sure everyone got time with him that night, which was just really nice. He made everybody feel very special.
Definitely, and we can see that. And that's what everybody said too. Whoever we've spoken with who knows Ben or who was around him initially has had a similar thing to say, that he's a very genuine guy. Clearly, you know, there wasn't a connection there, right? Because you were eliminated night one.
Yes.
So what was that like? Did you feel like you got a fair shake? Like, what was your takeaway after leaving about kind of that whole experience that you went through?
I mean, right after I left, I was shocked because I kind of thought that what I did was different, and I thought that he would have liked that. But looking back on it, like I took some time off and I kind of like reflected back, and I was like, you know, everything happens for a reason. It's something I live by so strongly, and it wasn't meant to be. And had I stayed longer, maybe I, you know, wouldn't have had a connection with him. Maybe I would have gone home the second week. You never know. But I'm kind of glad that I went home when I did. And they immediately kept in touch with me, producers, and they invited me back for Women Tell All.
That's right.
That doesn't usually happen for night one girls. So there's something to be said there. And I had a great time. I kept in touch with all the girls.
Yeah, about that, who are you closest with?
Well, I didn't really gain too much friendship the first night, although we were together for like 13 hours. But I became closest with Tiara the first night. She ended up going home with me as well. But after that, I really kept in touch with Amanda, and I kept in touch with, who else? Mainly Tiara and, Jen, Lauren Barr, like a bunch of the girls, just from seeing them first night. And then after seeing them on Women Tell All, that was like that much better to actually spend the weekend with them and really get to know the girls.
I have a question, because you were on the show, you know, just briefly, but then you're on the Women Tell All. So people, I'm sure there's definitely people that recognize you. In between when you were on The Bachelor and then now you're on Paradise, obviously you're getting a lot of TV time. What was it like? What was your experience dating since you were on The Bachelor before Paradise? Were guys approaching you because they knew who you were? Were you creeped out by that? You getting noticed a lot? What was that like?
It's interesting. Because I went home the first night, I was not expecting for anybody to remember who I was or know who I was. But at the time when I got back, I didn't have a graphic design job. So I started bartending just to like make some money and, you know, just be in New York City and just get to know people. And when I was behind the bar, it was constantly people recognizing me. And it was like shocking to me. I really didn't expect that. But now, I don't know if you want to get into that now, but
let's transition.
Yeah,
Let's
sorry.
go to it.
But now with Paradise, like I have a full-time job now, so I'm not really at the bar working. Like I'm in an office. Not many people know who I am, and that's totally fine. But I don't get recognized as much as I did when I was bartending.
Wow,
That makes sense. That makes sense. I was going to say, when you told your family and your friends that, guys, I'm going to give Paradise a chance after the whole experience you had with The Bachelor, what was their response? Like, what kind of reactions were you getting?
Well, I have two brothers, an older brother and a younger brother. And first time around, you know, they're very protective of me. They didn't want me to do it, but they realized that I was going to do it anyway. And they were on board and they supported me, and my parents were all for it. They know that I'm kind of a free-spirited person and I don't necessarily have this direct path to have an office job. And so they were all supportive. And then I said, when I got back from The Bachelor, I said I would never do Paradise. And
interesting.
Kind of just went back into my life. And after Women Tell All and I was approached for it, I said, yes, of course. And I don't know what flipped in my mind, but I kind of thought, like, why wouldn't I? I was given this opportunity the first time, and I didn't necessarily go as far as I wanted, and I was given another chance, and if they want me, then I should go for it. And having experienced things the first time around, I knew what I did and didn't want to do going into Paradise, and I was very cautious of how I came across, especially with first impressions, and have clearly made a good run so far in Paradise.
You're doing pretty good. I think it's fair to say. Before you went to Paradise, and I know you said you were in communication with the producers, but were there people that they shared like, hey, so-and-so is going to be there? Was there anybody that you were really excited to see or to meet for the first time?
Anyone maybe you hoped would be there? They
don't share any of that information with us. They don't share anybody that like would be going. They simply just tell you. Actually, they don't tell you anything. They ask you who you would want to go, but just out of curiosity, like who would you be interested in? But
what was the answer to that one? Did you have anybody that stood out to you?
I didn't really have like a full list going in. I kind of wanted to make sure I could meet people like in person, and not necessarily judge somebody by just a photo. But I had always had like this interest in Josh Murray. I always thought he was a good-looking guy, obviously. And then again, Ben Z from when I had applied to Ben's season in the first place. And that's really it. But I wasn't. I had heard that neither of them were going to be going, so I kind of just like was going with it. I didn't really have a plan.
So you and Vinny, from what we're watching right now, seems you guys are hitting it off immediately on Paradise. And I want to know, was he someone that you had seen on JoJo's season and you kind of thought like, oh, that guy's cute? And how did you guys hit it off on Paradise? It looks like on TV they make it seem because it's edited down. You guys immediately just hit it off. Was it really that immediate? You know, explain kind of how that went down.
Yeah, actually, it was pretty immediate. It's pretty crazy. I had only gotten to see 2 episodes of JoJo's season before we left for Paradise. So, you know, Vinny was wasted the first night on JoJo's season. He didn't seem like somebody I would be interested in. He was never like on my radar really. But walking down the stairs into Paradise, the first person I saw was Daniel, obviously like with his shirt off, and he gave me a hug and like, oh, okay, he's sexy. And then I looked to my left and I was like, I don't even remember saying hi to Vinny. Like, it was like, I kind of blacked it out because I was like, wow, like, who, I didn't even know who was that. Like, who is this guy?
Right.
Like, big blue eyes, just like so sweet, so genuine. And then we kind of just spent the day at the beach and in the pool, and almost immediately, like that night, hours later, like we were the first couple in paradise.
Right, and Vinny seems like, I mean, Ian and I have been recapping, since The Bachelor and all that stuff. He seems like a pretty cool guy, and he seems, when you see him on TV, you're like, this guy's not putting on anything or trying too hard. Is that kind of what attracted you to him?
Yeah, not at all. Like, Vinny and myself, and we're getting a lot of this feedback on Twitter and from our fans that, Team Vizzy is the most normal couple in paradise, the most natural people, and I truly do think that, like, Vinny is so genuine and just so natural, and he's not putting on any sort of front at all.
So first of all, can we say Team Vizzy? That's legit. I like that.
That is our name. That's what we said. Team Grace, Team Vizzy. Like, we were like the Fantastic Four. We were inseparable.
So I have to ask you too. So the Bachelor series, they always kind of make fun of people's professions, right? So like even our guy Robbie Hayes was like a former swimmer, and it's like, really, is he a former swimmer? Vinny they have as a barber, and clearly he was shaping up all the guys on the Bachelorette, but he's also a DJ, right?
Yeah, I think he's more of a DJ now. He doesn't do hair anymore.
He doesn't do it anymore, so he's
it's just a hobby.
Perfect. Well, that's pretty cool. So is he still living in New York, or is he in Vegas? What kind of stuff is he getting into now with the whole DJ career?
From what I know, he's always lived in Del Rey as of like 7 years ago. So he lives in Florida.
Gotcha. So he was a New York boy, and then he moved to Florida, I think pretty early in his life maybe, so he just went back there?
Yeah, I think he was born in Long Island and then moved to Florida in, I think, 2000. I actually have no idea when, like 7 years ago? 6 years ago?
There you go. So I'm not going to keep grilling you on Vinny. Obviously, you probably can't get into too much more detail. You guys have a great connection on the show. It's been super fun to watch you guys and your romance blossom. I know all our listeners like it as well.
Yep.
I do have to go back to something you said earlier, though, which is that you were, at least going into the show, had an attraction level to Josh. Josh has been a little bit of a villain thus far on this season. What was your take on him in person when you had a chance to meet him?
I kind of hate to see Josh being portrayed as a villain because the way he was around me was never the way he was around the guys. I think because a lot of the guys were jealous, or, Nick and Evan had, riffs with him. But I liked Josh. I really did. I gave him the benefit of the doubt. I didn't read Andy's book going into it. I read nothing. I had just heard certain things about him and about the book. So out of respect for Amanda, like prior to or after their date, I said to her, just be wary and be careful. And, I think he's a great guy, but you never know. Just keep your guard up. And many people did that to her, and I think that's what really broke her down the last episode.
That's kind of what we saw too, right? Because then Evan had something to say, and everybody had something to say.
Yeah, everyone was talking about it.
What were like the main themes surrounding Josh? Was it just basically that him and Andy had kind of a toxic relationship, that he's like untrustworthy? What were the things people were saying when you guys were there physically and filming the show?
Pretty much just everything you saw with what Evan. Well, actually, Evan was the only one who touched upon the actual details. We all just kind of said, just be wary, like, just be careful because you never know what you hear if it's true. But everyone was pretty big.
Did you think, okay, I got a question about some other guys, because obviously they're portraying Josh like a big villain. First off, just whether you like him or not, is he really moaning that much when he's kissing and eating?
I don't know. I was never that close to him when he was making out with Amanda.
Uh-huh.
I do love them so much, but I was never that close. Or eating.
Yeah, because I always wonder on this show if they're just like, maybe he moaned once and then they just in post keep putting it in to make us all think that he's moaning nonstop. But he seems like he's really enjoying life in every aspect, whether he's eating.
He really does. He honestly is like a very, very positive human being and is very just a genuinely good guy, and I think that people think that that comes across as being fake because he is always so positive and so driven, and I, in his defense, like, I mean, I don't think that that's fair.
Right. I know people like that too, where it's like, is this person fake or are they just like the nicest person ever? So I totally get what you're saying. That being said, if Josh is this genuine and great, let's talk about a couple people that maybe. What do you think about Chad? Were you looking forward to meeting him? What was it like when he was there? Is he?
I was definitely looking forward to meeting Chad. Everyone was, the guys included. We were all very disappointed that he left, but also kind of thankful because he, just like he did in JoJo's season, was stealing the show and would have probably taken away from a lot of relationships that had blossomed.
It also seems, it's interesting is Chad's whole deal, I don't know if you watched on JoJo's season, was that he liked to call everyone out for being phony and having ulterior motives. And it kind of seemed like especially after Paradise, he had the biggest ulterior motive of anyone ever. It seemed like he just really wanted to maybe be the Bachelor or get on TV as much as possible. What's your take on that? Does he seem phony?
I don't like to use the word phony. I honestly thought that he had a good heart, like deep, very, very deep down inside. And I thought like maybe he would give himself this second chance in Paradise and really show people who he is. And I had conversation with him prior to the show, very little like texting back and forth, nothing as in like, I'm interested in you, are you going to Paradise kind of thing, more of like, how was your experience on the show? Are you excited for Paradise? What do you do? How old are you? Very like platonic conversation.
Right.
And he seemed pretty cool. I, again, hadn't watched JoJo's season, so I didn't know what went down.
Uh-huh.
And then, obviously, going into Paradise, I was given the lowdown, and then that first night was just, he showed his true colors once again after JoJo's season, and I was so thankful that I dodged that bullet.
Right. Well, yeah, I just thought, it's weird because I know people that have met him and stuff, and they all say he's super nice. So I was like, oh, well, I think he's just trying to do his bad boy act. But then when he was on Paradise, I mean, the comments he made about Sarah's arm, like, that's just like, why would you want, that's not bad boy, that's just kind of being a total dick.
Yeah, that was very bad. And although not many people said anything after Sarah made her statement, like, we all were very much supportive of her, and I'm glad that she stood up for not only herself, but everyone else there, even the guys. Like, it just wasn't a comfortable situation. He was making it very uncomfortable, and he had drank a lot. And I'm not to say that, like, it's okay that he was drunk and said those things. It's definitely not. But he probably didn't remember half the things he said or did that night, and that's really unfortunate because he could have drank a lot less and probably stayed a little longer in Paradise.
Right. And so another person I want to ask you about is seems to just kind of get on the bad side of kind of alpha males is Evan. It seems, I mean, he really went after Chad on JoJo's season. You said you didn't watch it, but Evan definitely made it a point to kind of, poke the bear a little bit, as they say. And then with Josh now, it's, Evan, from what we've seen, Evan's interested in Amanda all of a sudden and goes for that. And then, Amanda seems very sweet how she handles it. And then Evan goes an extra step and says, I didn't read this book, but I heard there's some bad things about this guy. And you just told us what a great guy Josh is. So what's your take on Evan? Because it seems he can be, I go back and forth. It seems like, he's just kind of doing his best. And other times I'm like, this guy he's a little squirrely.
Yeah, I don't know. I never really... I only experienced great things with Evan. Like, he was funny and very caring and always had great advice. He was kind of like a dad figure almost for me. Like, he's a lot older than me, and he was just always very supportive and comforting to me. So I never really experienced him, like, starting any stuff with anybody, but I guess only with Josh. And maybe it was just his way of trying to get with Amanda, but if I were him, I wouldn't have gone up against Josh.
Right,
like,
I mean...
Their relationship was so blatant.
Well, yeah, it's definitely blatant. It's definitely awkward what he did, but it definitely seemed like that is kind of... I mean, let's just be honest. Every guy has their own game. Some people are one way, some people are another. It seems like Evan's game almost is to kind of try and go behind other people's backs. And I mean, even if you didn't see it while you were there, you did see on the show him taking Amanda's side and just kind of... The thing that weirded me out about it was he's like, I didn't read the book, but I heard it's bad, So...
And I think that, like, and another point is, like, yes, if I were Evan, I would not have gone against Josh. But on the other hand, you know, Amanda was somebody that Evan had in mind going into Paradise, and he was going to go for what he wanted, and that's exactly what I said going into Paradise, was that I wasn't going to hold back. And if there was anybody that I wanted to see or get to know, I was going to go for it. So I do give him props for, like, giving it a shot, because you will regret it if you don't. And looking back on Ben's season, I kind of stepped back. I was more quiet, wasn't really myself, and I was more reserved, and I didn't go after what I was there for. So I do give Evan props for doing what he did, even though it ended in a rejection. But, you know, I give him props for doing that, because he would have regretted it if he didn't.
Right.
That's true. I mean, you do have to give them some credit, right? I mean, that definitely was not an easy thing to do. Those guys have been, like, locked by the face, just connecting lips for days, it seemed like. Sticking with Evan for a second. So Carly now seems to be getting kind of a bad rap, just mainly from her cutaways, right? Like, her interactions with Evan, you know, seem fairly harmless, but then when she cuts away and is speaking to the camera, she really has nothing good to say about Evan. Not much good to say about Evan. Did you see that in person when you guys were there? Was that something that you guys had a sense of, or did she chat about that with the group?
The only thing really was after their date that she explained to us, as you saw on the show as well, was that the date didn't go well, and she was very sick, and as was he. And then she did discuss with us that she was going to break up with him, kind of give him the friend zone talk, and everything that was showed on the show was we discussed about.
Gotcha. So it really wasn't anything above that. So do you feel like maybe the editing had something to do with it a little bit? Maybe in, like, the post-production, kind of portraying her in that light?
I mean, edit is always questionable, but Carly is not a mean person. I love Carly so much, and she's so fun and goofy, and I think she was just kind of going through the process of her feelings as everyone else was. And as you saw in the last episode, you know, she's back on the Evan train, so you never know. You never know what could happen.
You really don't. And another person that always seems to be a hot commodity is Jared. So it seems as though a lot of the women, when they get there, have an attraction to Jared. Maybe it's going in, like someone like Jubilee had, or even this past week where we saw the connection that he had with Kayla. What was your thoughts on Jared? Maybe just initial thoughts, right? Like, was he just very handsome? Like, what about Jared stood out to you and to the girls?
To be honest, I never had any attraction to Jared ever. On Caitlyn's season, never thought I was, like, at least physically attracted to him. He seemed like a really nice guy. But then seeing him, I met him once in New York City. He was the nicest person ever. Really great personality, funny, quirky, very goofy, and just genuine and sweet. And I think that's what people really, like, love about him is he's very good looking, obviously, but his personality is amazing, and he's just a really fun guy to be around. And going into Paradise, he wasn't really somebody I was interested in getting to know on a romantic level, but he definitely was a good friend throughout the season.
Definitely, because even one of the twins had an attraction to Jared. So he really was, and he continues to be kind of that hot person there, at least from a guy's perspective.
I think that might be something. He's a little mysterious. He doesn't open up a lot immediately. So maybe that has something to do with it. I don't know.
Interesting. What was your take on the twins in general? Not just like at a high level, but the fact that the show portrays them as being really connected at the hip. Like, they almost can't go anywhere, literally. Like, even on the date that they went on, they had to switch roles to try to play a trick on the guy that they got on the date with. Like, what was your take on that, just in general? Like, were they really that tight, or did they both seem to have their own thing?
No, they are 100% always together. And I loved that about them. They are so synchronized, and I've never seen twins. Maybe I've never spent that much time around twins that are always together, but they do and say and finish each other's sentences, and it's crazy how alike they are. But it's also crazy how different they are in their personalities. But yeah, they're always together. They're so funny. By far, two of my favorite people. Really, really fun to be around. I absolutely love Emily and Haley.
Perfect. Their personalities definitely shine through. I think the TV watching audience sees that as well. Another just kind of couple related question is Grant and Lace. So Grant and Lace and you guys have been spending a lot of time together on the show, yourself and Vinny. What was your take on them as a couple? Of course, we saw Lace and her connection with Chad initially. So did she talk about that after Chad went home? And how did you guys all get along together?
Yeah, like I said, I mean, us four were inseparable the whole time, and it was just, we had so much fun together. And I told Lace coming into Paradise, I didn't really get to know her the first night at Ben's. I frankly did not like her because she was drunk and being crazy. And when we got to Paradise, me and her were kind of the only girls that didn't really have a tight, close girlfriend there because, Amanda and the twins were really, really close. Carly and Sarah were really close. So me and Lace kind of found this friendship in each other, and I told her straight up, I was like, oh my God, I did not like you the first night at Ben's. Like, I'm going to be straight up with you. But and she accepted it. She knew she was not in the right way there. And we became the best of friends. We were like sisters because we would bicker with each other, but we'd have so much fun with each other. And she's just really straight up and honest, and I love that about her. And all four of us just together had the best time. We were so funny and so goofy, and that's one thing I wish they'd show more of.
And which couple do you think has the stronger relationship between you and Vinny and Grant and Lace? You got to give us something, Izzy. Is it you guys or is it them?
You're going to have to wait and see.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll always wait and see, I guess. But I'm saying, in your opinion, who had the stronger relationship?
In my opinion, Vinny and I.
Okay. I have a quick question, too. We kind of skipped over this. Nick, it seemed at the beginning of the show, at least how they showed on TV, again, it could be editing, seemed like him and Amanda not only went on a date, but had a really good time. It seemed like Amanda, who you said you're pretty close with and been pretty close with, she was saying things to camera like, I really like Nick. He's like a 10. He's so hot. He's so nice. And then Josh showed up, and the way it was edited, at least, it seemed like immediately Nick didn't exist. So how did that play out? Like, I'm not faulting anyone if Amanda's into Josh. I don't care. I don't know any of these people, but how did that actually play out? Because it seems so sudden that Nick was just an afterthought of Amanda's.
Yeah, everything is definitely different. Think about how much footage they have, and then they have to cut it down into 2 hours or 1 hour. So a lot of footage is left on the cutting room floor, but she did have a great time with Nick. Definitely hit it off with him, had a great, great date. But I think Josh was definitely someone she was interested coming into the show. So once they hit it off on their date, it was like hot and heavy. Sorry, from then on. But her and Nick have met before, I believe. Don't quote me on that, but I think they had met before. They were only friends, and they had a good talk, and they were very, very civil and understanding of each other's feelings.
Right. So
it seems immediate, but it really wasn't.
Okay, so yeah, because they make it seem on the show that Nick is like, I really liked her, but now this other guy's here, and I don't know what to do, and I'm all alone.
It also has to do with the fact that Nick and Josh have competed for the same girl before, and say it was another guy, maybe it wouldn't have affected him or Josh in the same way, but it was kind of history repeating itself.
Okay. And then I also, just because he's a curious character, I want your take on Daniel. He seems like he's a funny, goofy guy, and but he seems like he might, like, deep down be like a super nice guy, and he kind of tries to, I don't know, like, what's your take on him?
I mean, watching him the first episode of JoJo's season, I was so weirded out. I was like, who is this guy?
Yeah.
And then my first conversation with him in Paradise was, him trying to guess my age, and I kept saying 25, and he was like 23, 21, and I was just like, all right, let's go somewhere else. It was like so strange. By the end, he was one of my closest friends. He is the funniest, most goofy, sarcastic, dry guy, but also so serious that he has a very serious side of him, and he would open up and talk to me about things, and everybody, his father being a quadriplegic, and things that he's gone through in his life, and he's a really, really good heart, and I think Daniel is amazing.
Nice. And I feel like they've done a good job showing that. Like, because Daniel, at least initially, like they kind of portray him as the silly guy, you know, the Canadian guy. He's funny, and then he's gotten deeper and deeper each episode. And so I think America has been able to see that as well. Is there anything, Izzy, that's happened thus far, like so in the episodes that have aired, that maybe happened when you guys were there that they just didn't show on TV? Anything like fun or crazy? How did you guys spend some of your downtime?
No, I mean, I think they really do show a wide variety of what we do there. Honestly, we don't do a lot at all. A lot of sleeping, a lot of swimming, a lot of tanning, and just kind of hanging out. We played a lot of games in the pool. We haven't really missed out on anything. A lot of naps for sure. A lot of tequila shots, but you've seen it all. You really have seen it all.
Nice. Well, we are very much looking forward to seeing even more.
Yeah.
And so it's going to be a lot of fun this season. We wanted to give you an opportunity to shout out your social media, maybe any projects you're working on or anything you'd like our listeners to go and check out.
Oh, yeah. Well, my social media, it's Instagram is Izzy Goodkind, IZZYGOODKIND, and the same thing with my Snapchat. And you'll see more to come.
All right.
Perfect.
Well, we're
So-
Team Busy now, all the way.
Yeah, Team Busy. I'm in it to win it.
Love it. Perfect. Well, hey, Izzy, we'll put that in the show notes as well. And it was a pleasure speaking with you, and we can't wait to see what happens.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
All right, take care.
All right, bye.
Today's episode of the E&G podcast is sponsored by our good friends at Clothing by Owl. All you Bachelor fans will recognize this name as they are the company behind the hugely popular Wine Bachelor and Yoga Pants tank top. What you may not know is that they give back a percentage of every item sold to animal rescue, and that notable Bachelor alums like JoJo Fletcher, Caitlin Bristow, Lauren Bushnell, Ben Higgins, and Nick Vale are all huge supporters. We're happy to offer our listeners 20% off when you visit clothingbyowl.com. Simply add the discount code ENG, that's EANDG, to save on all your Bachelor gear. And be sure to follow them on social media at Clothing by Owl.
Jeff and I are doggy dads, which is why we're so excited to be partnering with our newest sponsor, Puppies Make Me Happy. They have a super simple mission to make the happiest clothes on earth, which they do. And we know our listeners will love this brand just as much as we do. Plus, we're excited to help spread a little happiness ourselves by offering listeners 20% off all merchandise by using discount code ENG. That's EANDG at checkout. Make sure to follow them on Instagram at Puppies Make Me Happy